The morning light filtered through thin curtains as Anna walked slowly down the familiar hallway of Pine Grove Care Center. Her steps were measured, careful, but determined. At 100 years old, Anna moved with the deliberate pace of someone who had learned that rushing led nowhere important. The nurses at the station smiled and waved as she passed. After 30 years of daily visits, she had become as much a fixture in the building as the landscape paintings that hung on the walls. "Good morning." "Mrs. Chen," called Nurse Rosa, her voice warm with genuine affection. "Beautiful day today, isn't it?" Anna nodded, her wrinkled face crinkling further as she smiled. "Every day above ground is a beautiful day," she replied. The same response she'd given for decades. In her weathered hands, she carried a small vase with fresh daisies, bright yellow against the muted colors of the care facility. The flowers were from her own garden, where she still insisted on tending the plants herself despite her age and the protests of her children. Room 317 looked the same as it had yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that, all the way back to 1995 when Thomas Chen had been brought here. The monitors beeped steadily. The morning sunlight caught the silver strands in Thomas's thin hair, making it look almost like it was glowing. He lay still, as he had for 30 years, his chest rising and falling in the steady rhythm maintained partly by his own body and partly by the machines that had kept him alive all this time. "Good morning, my dear," Anna said, setting down the flowers and beginning her ritual. She removed the wilting daisies from yesterday and replaced them with the fresh ones. "The garden is doing well. I think we'll have tomatoes early this year." As she spoke, she moved around the room, straightening items that didn't need straightening, adjusting blinds that were already at the perfect angle. These small tasks gave her hands something to do while she talked to the man who had been her husband for 73 years, though he had only been present for 43 of them. Anna pulled her chair closer to the bed and sat down, her joints protesting slightly. Getting old wasn't for the faint of heart, she often thought, though she rarely complained aloud. What right did she have to complain about aging when Thomas had been denied the privilege? He remained frozen at 70, the age he'd been when the stroke had stolen him away from her. "Lily called yesterday," Anna continued, taking his unresponsive hand in hers. His skin was paper-thin now, blue veins visible beneath the surface. She stroked his knuckles with her thumb. "She's worried about me playing at her house so much. Says my hands can't take it. Can you believe that? Our daughter, telling me what my hands can and can't do." She chuckled softly, looking down at her own hands. They were spotted with age and slightly bent from arthritis, but they were still strong, still capable. The slight tremor that had developed in recent years was barely noticeable most days. "I haven't told them what I'm practicing for," she confided in a lower voice, leaning closer to Thomas as if he might actually hear her secret. They'd make such a fuss. Outside the room, a meal cart rattled past. Down the hall, someone was playing an old Frank Sinatra record. The care center was coming alive with the day's activities. But here in room 317, time seemed suspended as it had been for 30 years. Anna settled back in her chair, still holding Thomas's hand. "Do you remember when we met? At that university party?" Her eyes took on a faraway look. "I was playing the piano and you stood in the doorway watching. You told me later you fell in love with my hands first, the way they moved across the keys." The memory was as clear to her now as it had been when it happened 80 years ago. She had been 19, a music student with dreams of concert halls. He had been 22, studying engineering with dreams of building bridges. Neither of their lives had gone exactly as planned, but they had built something beautiful together nonetheless. "I stopped playing after your stroke," she said, her voice softening. "Did you know that? I couldn't bear to touch the keys knowing you couldn't hear me anymore." She paused, swallowing hard. "But I've started again. For you." Anna had been a woman of considerable talent once. She'd given up a promising career when they'd started their family, but she'd never stopped playing. Their home had always been filled with music, until the day Thomas collapsed in their kitchen, the sound of Debussy still floating from the living room where Anna had been playing. The doctors had explained the stroke in technical terms: a massive cerebral hemorrhage, too deep in the brain for surgical intervention. They'd offered little hope but couldn't definitively say he would never wake up. So Anna had chosen hope, clinging to it through years that turned into decades. Their children had grown up, had children of their own, and now those grandchildren were adults with families. Life had moved on around Thomas's stillness. The nurses had been kind over the years, always making room for Anna's presence. The facility's directors had changed, staff had come and gone, but the story of Anna's devotion had become legendary. New employees were told about the centenarian who never missed a day, who spoke to her comatose husband as if he could answer back. What many didn't know was that Anna had lived alone in their family home all these years, refusing to move in with her children or into a retirement community. "My husband will need our home when he wakes up," she would say firmly whenever the subject was raised. Her children had eventually stopped trying to persuade her otherwise. "I should tell you about what happened at the grocery store yesterday," Anna continued, settling into her storytelling. Thomas had always loved her stories, the way she noticed small details and found humor in everyday situations. "That new checkout boy, well, I guess he's not so new anymore, he's been there almost a year." He was trying to explain to Mrs. Patterson how to use the self-checkout machine. "You remember Helen Patterson, don't you? Her arthritis is worse than mine, and she can barely see the screen." Anna went on describing the comedy of errors that ensued, acting out the different parts with changes in her voice. Anyone observing might have thought it strange, this performance for an unresponsive audience, but Anna knew better. Somewhere, somehow, she believed Thomas could hear her. Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway, his kind face breaking into a smile. "Mrs. Chen, good to see you as always." "Good morning, Doctor," Anna replied. "I was just telling Thomas about yesterday's excitement." Dr. Patel entered the room fully and picked up the chart at the foot of the bed. He had been Thomas's doctor for only 5 years, but he had quickly understood the unique situation in room 317. He never rushed Anna or suggested her presence might be futile. Instead, he often told his medical students about studies showing that coma patients sometimes retain some awareness of their surroundings, particularly of familiar voices. "His vitals are stable," Dr. Patel said, making a note on the chart. "Any changes you've noticed?" It was part of their routine. Anna always shook her head, but Dr. Patel always asked anyway, respecting her role as the most consistent observer of Thomas's condition. "His color seems good today," she offered, "and I thought his hand might have twitched when I was talking about our granddaughter's new baby." Dr. Patel nodded, not dismissing her observation, but not offering false hope either. "The brain is a mysterious thing, Mrs. Chen. We still understand so little about consciousness." After checking Thomas's vital signs and making a few adjustments to his monitors, Dr. Patel patted Anna's shoulder gently. "I hear a big birthday's coming up soon. Any special plans?" Anna's eyes brightened. "My family is planning something. They won't tell me what exactly, but my granddaughter keeps asking about music." "Music is powerful medicine," Dr. Patel said. "I've seen remarkable things happen when patients are exposed to music that was significant to them." After the doctor left, Anna turned back to Thomas. "He's a good doctor. You would like him." She glanced at the small clock on the nightstand. "I should go soon. Lily is picking me up for my hair appointment. Can't look shabby for my 100th birthday, can I?" She stood slowly, leaning slightly on her wooden cane. Age had bent her once straight spine, making her several inches shorter than she had been in her prime. Still, there was dignity in her posture, resilience in the way she carried herself. "I'll be back this afternoon," she promised, leaning down to place a kiss on Thomas's forehead. His skin was cool against her lips. "Rest well, my love. Save your strength. You'll need it soon enough." As she gathered her purse and adjusted her light sweater, Anna glanced back at the still form on the bed. For just a moment, she allowed herself to imagine his eyes opening, his voice calling her name. It was a fantasy she had carried for 30 years, one that had sustained her through countless lonely nights. The fantasy had taken on new urgency lately. At 100, Anna was pragmatic enough to know her own time was growing short. The idea that she might die before Thomas woke, or before he passed peacefully in his sleep, was becoming harder to bear. But today, looking at him in the gentle morning light, Anna felt a strange new certainty. Something was about to change. She could feel it in her bones in the same way she could feel rain coming before the clouds gathered. "I have a surprise for you," she whispered, her hand on the doorknob. "Something I've been practicing. Something to remind you of us, of who we were, who we still are." With one last look at the man who had been the center of her world for most of her life, Anna stepped into the hallway. The birthday surprise her family was planning had given her an idea. a way to reach Thomas that she hadn't tried in 30 years. A way to speak to him in the language that had first brought them together. As she walked slowly toward the exit, nodding to staff members who greeted her by name, Anna's mind was already on the hours of practice ahead. Her fingers itched to touch the keys of her daughter's piano, to perfect the piece she had chosen, Debussy's Clair de Lune, the piece she had been playing the day they met, the piece that had been playing when he collapsed. After 30 years of silence, Anna was ready to play for Thomas again. And somehow, deep in her heart, she knew he would hear her. Lily Chen parked her silver sedan in front of her childhood home and sat for a moment, watching her mother through the living room window. Anna was watering her plants, moving slowly but purposefully from pot to pot. At 100, or nearly so with just 2 weeks until the milestone birthday, Anna insisted on maintaining as much independence as possible. With a sigh, Lily gathered the grocery bags from the passenger seat and headed up the walkway. The concrete path was uneven in spots, cracked from decades of harsh winters and the roots of the massive oak tree her father had planted the year they bought the house. Lily had offered countless times to have it repaired, but Anna refused. "Your father laid that concrete with his own hands," she would say. "A few cracks give it character." The front door was unlocked, as it always was when Anna expected visitors. Lily called out as she entered, "Mom, it's me." "In the living room," came the reply. Lily found her mother standing near the piano, one hand resting on its closed lid. The instrument had been silent for 30 years, preserved like a shrine. Dust never gathered on its polished surface. Anna cleaned it weekly, though she never opened it. "I brought your groceries," Lily said, setting the bags on the nearby coffee table. "And some of that tea you like." Anna smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "You're a good daughter. Are you feeling okay?" Lily asked, noticing her mother's hand still resting on the piano. "You seem different today." Anna's eyes, faded with age but still sharp, met her daughter's. "I've been thinking about playing again." The statement hung in the air between them. Lily tried to keep her expression neutral, but surprise flickered across her face. "Playing? The piano?" "No, beach volleyball," Anna replied with a dry chuckle. "Of course the piano." Lily approached carefully as if her mother might change her mind if startled. "May I ask why? After all this time?" Anna turned to gaze at the family photos arranged atop the piano. There were pictures spanning decades, Anna and Thomas on their wedding day. The children at various ages. Grandchildren. Even a few great-grandchildren. In the center stood a framed photo of Thomas at 70, taken just weeks before his stroke. "Your father loved to hear me play," Anna said simply. She didn't elaborate further, but she didn't need to. Lily understood. "Would you like to play here?" Lily asked. "I can have it tuned," Anna shook her head. "No, I want to play for him." The weight of her words settled around them. "To play for Thomas at the care facility after 30 years of silence, for your birthday?" Lily asked softly. Anna nodded. "A gift for both of us." Later that afternoon, after they'd put away the groceries and shared lunch, Lily watched her mother's hands as she washed the dishes. They trembled slightly, the joints swollen with arthritis. How would those hands, which had once moved with such grace across the keys, manage now? "Mom," Lily began carefully, "your hands are old like the rest of me," Anna finished for her. "But they remember. Muscle memory, they call it." She dried a plate and set it in the cupboard. "I've been practicing." "Practicing where?" "At May's house, when you think I'm just visiting my granddaughter for tea." Anna's eyes twinkled with the small deception. "Her piano isn't as good as ours, but it's been enough to remind my fingers what to do." Lily felt a rush of emotion, pride in her mother's determination, worry about potential disappointment, and something like awe at the devotion that had never wavered in 30 years. "What piece are you practicing?" Lily asked. "Clair de Lune," Anna replied. It was always his favorite, Lily remembered. As children, she and her brother had often fallen asleep to the sound of their mother playing that piece downstairs, the delicate notes floating up through the old house like a lullaby. "What can I do to help?" Lily asked. "Talk to Dr. Patel," Anna said.
"See if it's possible to bring a piano to Thomas's room for my birthday."
"And don't tell your brother or the grandkids about the playing part yet. Just that I want to celebrate with Thomas." The next day, Lily met with Dr. Patel in his office at Pine Grove. The doctor listened thoughtfully as she explained her mother's request. It's unusual, he acknowledged, but not impossible. We'd need to temporarily move some equipment, but Thomas's condition is stable enough that a brief rearrangement shouldn't pose any risks. Do you think? Lily hesitated, unsure how to phrase her question. Is there any chance it could help him somehow? Dr. Patel leaned back in his chair, considering. There have been documented cases of music therapy having remarkable effects on coma patients. The auditory pathways can sometimes remain intact even when other brain functions are compromised. He gestured to a shelf of medical journals behind him. Recent research suggests familiar music can stimulate brain activity in ways we're only beginning to understand. He leaned forward again, his expression gentle but serious. That said, I don't want to offer false hope. Thomas has been unresponsive for 30 years. The likelihood of any significant change remains extremely low. My mother doesn't expect a miracle, Lily said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. I think she just needs to do this for herself as much as for him. Dr. Patel nodded. Then we'll make it happen. The small upright from the recreation room could be moved in for the occasion. When exactly were you thinking? Her birthday is on the 15th, that's a Saturday. Perfect. Weekend staffing is lighter, so we'll have more flexibility with the space. As Lily drove home, she called her brother David on the car's speakerphone. Hey, what's up? David answered, the sounds of his busy restaurant kitchen audible in the background. Mom wants to celebrate her birthday at Pine Grove with Dad, she explained. No surprise there, David replied. She'd probably sleep there if they let her. This is different, Lily said. She wants to play the piano for him. The background noise on David's end suddenly diminished as if he'd stepped into a quieter space. Play? Mom hasn't touched a piano since Dad's stroke. She's been secretly practicing at May's house. Apparently our daughter has been in on it for weeks. David was silent for a moment. Does she really think after all this time? I don't know what she thinks, Lily admitted. But Dr. Patel approved it, and I'm not going to be the one to stand in her way. Of course not, David agreed quickly. It's just, I don't want her to be devastated if nothing happens. She's lived with nothing happening for 30 years, Lily reminded him. I think she can handle it. Over the next week and a half, preparations for Anna's 100th birthday unfolded on two fronts. Officially, the family arranged a modest celebration at Pine Grove. A special cake, decorations for Thomas's room, and small gifts. Privately, Anna continued her secret rehearsals, now with Lily's knowledge and support. 3 days before the birthday, Lily drove her mother to May's house for what would be her final practice session. Do you want to come in and listen? Anna asked as they pulled into the driveway. Lily shook her head. I'd rather wait and hear it on your birthday, she said. It'll be more special that way. The truth was, Lily was afraid of what she might see. Her mother's once nimble fingers struggling with the keys. The potential frustration if the music didn't flow as it had decades ago. Better to preserve the memory of her mother's playing as it had been. Inside, May welcomed her grandmother with a warm hug. At 35, she was the oldest grandchild and had the closest relationship with Anna. Ready for the final rehearsal? May asked, leading Anna to the piano in her sunlit living room. As ready as these old hands will ever be, Anna replied. Flexing her fingers, she settled onto the bench, adjusted her posture, still perfect despite her age, and placed her hands on the keys. She closed her eyes for a moment as if in prayer, then began to play. The opening notes of Claire de Lune filled the room, hesitant at first but growing more confident with each measure. Anna's technique wasn't what it had been in her prime. Occasional notes were missed or fumbled, and the tempo wavered in the more technically demanding passages. But the emotion, the soul of the piece, remained intact, perhaps even enriched by the vulnerability of age and the weight of all that had happened in the intervening years. May watched, mesmerized. She had never heard her grandmother play before, had known her only as the devoted wife who spent her days at her grandfather's bedside. This was a different Anna, an artist expressing herself in a language beyond words. When the final notes faded, Anna sat motionless for several seconds, her hands resting lightly on the keys. That was beautiful, Grandma, May said softly. Anna opened her eyes and smiled. It will do, she said. On the morning of her 100th birthday, Anna dressed with unusual care. She chose a pale blue dress she had bought years ago but never worn, a splurge she had justified by telling herself Thomas would see her in it someday. Lily helped style her thin white hair and added a touch of pink lipstick. "You look lovely, Mom," Lily said, her throat tight with emotion. "Not bad for a century-old," Anna replied with a wink. When they arrived at Pine Grove, they found Thomas's room transformed. Soft streamers hung from the ceiling and vases of daisies, Anna's favorite, brightened every surface. The hospital bed had been pushed to one side, and in the cleared space stood a small upright piano, its wood gleaming under the lights. David was already there with his wife and children. May arrived moments later with her husband and their 2 young daughters. Several of the nurses who had cared for Thomas over the years stopped by with birthday wishes and small gifts. Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway, smiling at the gathering. "Mrs. Chen, happy birthday," he said, stepping forward to take her hand. "Everything is arranged as you requested. The piano was tuned yesterday." Anna thanked him, her eyes already drawn to Thomas. He lay as still as ever, unaware of the celebration surrounding him. Or was he? For a brief heart-stopping moment, Anna thought she saw his eyelids flutter. But when she looked more closely, everything was as it had been for 30 years. The steady rise and fall of his chest, the slack features, the closed eyes. As the small crowd of family and staff gathered around, David brought out a cake with a single candle. "One for each century," he joked, and everyone laughed. After Anna blew out the candle and the cake was distributed, Lily caught her mother's eye and nodded slightly. "It was time. Before we continue," Anna said, her voice stronger than it had been in years, "I'd like to play something for Thomas." The room quieted as she made her way to the piano. The room fell silent as Anna made her way to the piano. Her steps were slow but deliberate, a lifetime of purpose carrying her forward. As she settled onto the bench, adjusting her position with the careful precision of a professional, several nurses who had been about to continue their rounds paused in the doorway. Word had spread through Pine Grove that something extraordinary was happening in room 317. Anna looked at her family gathered around Thomas's bed, Lily with tears already forming in her eyes, David trying to maintain his composure, me recording the moment on her phone, the younger grandchildren and great-grandchildren watching with curious expressions, too young to understand the full weight of what was unfolding. "I haven't played in public for many years," Anna said, her voice steady despite the emotion visible on her face. "And I haven't played at all since Thomas had his stroke. But today seems like the right time to break that silence." She turned toward the bed where Thomas lay, unchanged and unmoving. This was always his favorite piece. We danced to it at our wedding. He hummed it when he rocked our babies to sleep. He requested it on every anniversary. Her voice softened. The last thing he heard before his stroke was me playing this very piece in our living room. Anna placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath and began to play. The opening notes of Claire de Lune filled the small room, hesitant at first as her arthritic fingers found their positions. The tempo was slower than the traditional performance, but no one noticed. What the playing lacked in technical precision, it made up for in emotional depth. Each note carrying the weight of 78 years of shared life, of joy and sorrow, of 3 decades of unanswered devotion. As she played, Anna was transported back to their first meeting, a university party where she'd been asked to play. Thomas had stood in the doorway, transfixed, watching her hands move across the keys. Later that night, he'd told her that he'd fallen in love with her music before he'd even seen her face. Her fingers moved through the familiar progression, muscle memory taking over where practice fell short. A wrong note here, a hesitation there, but the essence of the piece remained intact. In her mind, she was 20 again, playing in their first apartment on a second-hand upright piano that Thomas had surprised her with, spending money they couldn't afford because he believed in her talent. Halfway through the piece, where the music swells before returning to its gentle conclusion, Anna felt a change in the room. Something shifted in the atmosphere, though she couldn't have said what. Focused on the music, she didn't look up, didn't see the sudden alertness in Dr. Patel's posture, or the way Nurse Rosa's hand flew to her mouth. Anna was lost in memories, teaching their children to play simple tunes on this same piano. Thomas surprising her with tickets to see a famous pianist on their 20th anniversary. The family gatherings where she would play while everyone sang along. And finally, that terrible day 30 years ago when the music had stopped mid-measure at the sound of Thomas collapsing in the kitchen. As she approached the final section of the piece, where the melody becomes most poignant, Anna finally looked toward the hospital bed. Through vision blurred with tears, she thought she saw movement. A twitch of fingers, perhaps, or a slight turn of the head. But she had imagined such things so many times over the years that she didn't trust her eyes. She returned her focus to the keys, determined to finish the piece properly, to give Thomas this gift even if he couldn't acknowledge it. The final notes hung in the air, delicate and fading like the last rays of sunset. Anna kept her fingers on the keys for several seconds after the sound had disappeared, reluctant to break the spell. Then she slowly lowered her hands to her lap and turned toward her husband. The room was utterly still. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath. And then, a sound so unexpected that at first Anna thought she had imagined it. A raspy intake of breath, different from the mechanical rhythm that had governed Thomas's breathing for 30 years. "Mom," Lily whispered, her voice trembling as she pointed toward the bed. Anna rose from the piano bench, her legs unsteady, and moved closer to Thomas. Dr. Patel was already there, his stethoscope out, his expression a mixture of professional focus and disbelief. "His heart rate has increased," he said quietly, "and there's definitely a change in his breathing pattern." "Thomas?" Anna's voice was barely audible as she reached for her husband's hand. And then it happened. The thing she had dreamed of through 30 years of hospital visits. The moment she had imagined so many times that she no longer believed it could be real. Thomas's eyelids fluttered. "Get the neurologist on call," Dr. Patel instructed Nurse Rosa, his calm voice belying the extraordinary nature of what was happening, and page Dr. Rivera immediately. Anna barely heard him. Her world had narrowed to Thomas's face, to the subtle movements that no one else might have noticed but that she, who had studied this face for a lifetime, recognized as signs of awareness struggling to surface. "Thomas," she said again, louder this time, squeezing his hand. "I'm here. It's Anna." His fingers twitched against hers. Not the random movements that sometimes occurred in coma patients, but a deliberate pressure, however faint. The room erupted into activity around them. Medical staff hurried in with equipment. David was on the phone, his voice urgent as he apparently called someone connected to the medical profession. May had moved closer, still recording, her face streaked with tears. The younger children were ushered outside by their parents, the sudden tension in the room too much for them to understand. But Anna remained still at the center of the whirlwind, her hand clutching Thomas's, her eyes never leaving his face. "The music," she said to no one in particular. He heard the music. Dr. Patel, checking Thomas's pupil response with a small flashlight, glanced up at her words. "It's possible," he said. "Music can activate neural pathways that other stimuli can't reach. There have been cases, rare ones, where familiar music has triggered responses in patients previously thought to be permanently unresponsive." "Keep talking to him, Mrs. Chen," he added. "If he can hear anything, it's most likely your voice." So Anna talked, her words tumbling out in a stream of consciousness, about their children and grandchildren, about the house she'd maintained all these years, about how she'd never stopped believing he would return to her. All the while, the medical team worked around her, checking vital signs, adjusting equipment, documenting every change. Thomas's eyes opened fully for the first time in 30 years. They were unfocused at first, the same deep brown Anna remembered but clouded with confusion. Then slowly, painfully slowly, his gaze seemed to search the room until it found her face. "Anna," he whispered, the word so faint that only she heard it. The sound of her name on his lips after so long broke something inside her. Tears flowed freely down her wrinkled cheeks as she leaned closer. "I'm here," she said. "I've always been here." His lips moved again, forming words that required her to lean even closer to hear. "Beautiful," he managed to say. "You're playing beautiful." Dr. Patel had moved to the door, speaking rapidly into a phone. "Yes, full consciousness from a 30-year coma. No, I'm not exaggerating. Yes, I understand the implications. Just get Dr. Rivera here now." Lily had collapsed into a chair, overcome by the moment. David stood frozen, his phone still in his hand, forgotten. May had stopped recording and was simply watching, her hand over her mouth. "I never stopped practicing," Anna told Thomas, a small white lie that made him smile faintly. "I knew you'd wake up to hear me someday." His eyes, growing more focused by the minute, held questions she couldn't begin to answer. "Where am I? How long has it been? What happened? Those would come later. For now it was enough that he was looking at her, that he had heard her music and found his way back. Mrs. Chen, Dr. Patel said gently, returning to the bedside. This is unprecedented. We need to run some tests immediately to assess Mr. Chen's condition, and I'm afraid I have to ask everyone except essential medical personnel to step outside temporarily. Anna nodded, understanding the medical necessity but unwilling to let go of Thomas's hand. Just a few minutes, she told her husband. The doctors need to check you over. I'll be right outside. I'm not going anywhere. Thomas's fingers tightened around hers with surprising strength for someone who had been immobile for so long. 30 years, he whispered, the words shocking everyone in the room. Somehow impossibly he seemed to know. You waited. 30 years. Anna nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Worth it, Thomas said, the ghost of his old smile playing at the corners of his mouth. To hear you play. One more time. As she finally allowed Lily to lead her from the room, Anna looked back at her husband. The medical team had surrounded his bed, their voices urgent but excited. Thomas's eyes followed her to the door, alert and aware in a way that defied all medical explanation. In the hallway, Anna leaned heavily against the wall, her legs suddenly too weak to support her. A century of life had not prepared her for this moment. Lily and David flanked her, their own shock evident in their stunned expressions. Mom, David said finally, his voice breaking. How did you know? How did you know the music would reach him? Anna shook her head. I didn't know, she admitted. I just hoped. After 30 years, hope was all I had left. Dr. Rivera, the neurologist, rushed past them into the room, barely acknowledging their presence in his haste. More staff followed, carrying equipment Anna didn't recognize. What happens now? Lily asked, the practical question grounding them all in the midst of the miracle. Anna straightened her shoulders, strength returning as shock gave way to purpose. Now, she said, we bring him home. The waiting room outside Thomas's unit had never felt so small. Anna sat with her family, surrounded by the buzz of whispered conversations and the occasional ping of a text message as news spread through their extended family network. May had already received calls from relatives in 3 different states who had seen the short video clip she'd shared in the family group chat. Thomas, opening his eyes, looking directly at Anna. Mrs. Chen? A young doctor Anna didn't recognize approached, clipboard in hand. I'm Dr. Wendy Torres, neurology resident. Dr. Rivera asked me to update you while they continue their assessment. Anna straightened in her chair, her heart racing. How is he? Dr. Torres sat in the empty chair beside her, her expression carefully balanced between professional detachment and genuine wonder. Mr. Chen is showing remarkable neurological responses. He's awake, alert, and responsive to verbal commands. He can move his fingers and toes and he's attempting speech. Will he recover? Lily asked, her voice breaking on the final word. It's too early to make any definitive prognosis, Dr. Torres said, but I can tell you that what we're seeing defies conventional medical understanding of prolonged coma states. After 30 years of minimal brain activity, the sudden return of consciousness is, well, there simply isn't much precedent in the medical literature. But he knew me, Anna said firmly. He recognized the music, Dr. Torres nodded. Yes, and that's particularly fascinating. Long-term memory seems at least partially intact, which is extraordinary. We're already consulting with specialists from the University Medical Center. Dr. Rivera has been on the phone with colleagues around the country. David, who had been pacing by the window, turned back to the group. Are you saying Dad might be in medical journals? Almost certainly, Dr. Torres confirmed. Cases like this are exceedingly rare, and the apparent trigger being music, specifically music with strong emotional significance. That's something researchers will want to study extensively. Anna barely heard this exchange. Her thoughts were entirely with Thomas, alone among strangers in the room that had been his silent home for 3 decades. When can I see him again? She asked, cutting through the medical speculation. Dr. Torres checked her watch. They should be finishing the initial assessment soon. Dr. Rivera wanted to complete a basic neurological workup without overwhelming Mr. Chen. Too much stimulation could be problematic after such a long period of minimal sensory input. But he asked for me, Anna insisted, the memory of Thomas's whispered words giving her a boldness she might otherwise have lacked with medical professionals. He shouldn't be alone with strangers right now. Mom's right, Lily interjected, putting a supportive hand on her mother's shoulder. After 30 years, every minute apart is precious. Dr. Torres seemed to understand. She nodded and stood. Let me check on their progress. I'll see if we can get you in there sooner rather than later. As the doctor walked away, Anna's great-granddaughter Zoe, just 7 years old, tugged at her sleeve. Great-grandma, did great-grandpa really wake up because of your piano song? Anna looked down at the child's earnest face. How to explain something she herself didn't fully understand. Sometimes, she said carefully, love finds ways to reach people that medicine can't explain. Like magic? Zoe asked, her eyes wide. Anna smiled. Like magic that happens when people don't give up on each other. The door to Thomas's unit opened and Dr. Rivera emerged, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He made a beeline for Anna. Mrs. Chen, he said, your husband is asking for you. The family rose as one, but Dr. Rivera held up a hand. Just Mrs. Chen for now. We need to be careful not to overwhelm him. The rest of you can see him very briefly, one at a time afterward. Anna didn't wait for further discussion. With a surprising burst of energy that belied her 100 years, she followed Dr. Rivera down the hallway, her cane tapping a steady rhythm on the linoleum floor. What should I expect? She asked as they approached the door. Dr. Rivera paused, choosing his words with care. He's weak, which is to be expected after such prolonged immobility. His speech is labored but comprehensible. And he's confused about the passage of time. We've told him the date, but I'm not sure he's fully processed what that means. 30 years, Anna murmured. How could anyone process that? Indeed. We've kept explanations simple for now. Too much information at once could trigger extreme psychological distress. He placed a gentle hand on Anna's arm. Follow his lead. Answer questions directly, but don't volunteer too much detail unless he asks. Anna nodded, steeling herself. Then Dr. Rivera opened the door. The room had been transformed. The birthday decorations remained, but they were now surrounded by medical equipment, monitors, IV stands, and devices Anna couldn't identify. A team of medical professionals hovered near the walls, giving the illusion of space while remaining close enough to intervene if needed. And in the center of it all was Thomas. He was sitting up slightly, the bed adjusted to support him. The breathing tube was gone, replaced by a nasal cannula. His face, which for 30 years had been expressionless and slack, was now animated with awareness. His eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that had once looked at her with such love, were open, alert, and searching the room. When they found her, his entire face changed. It was like watching the sun break through clouds after a storm. Anna, he said, his voice a raspy whisper after decades of disuse. She moved to his side, taking his hand in hers. Up close, the changes were more apparent. His skin was paper-thin, his muscles severely atrophied, his once thick hair now sparse and completely white. Yet the essence of Thomas remained in his eyes, in the way his fingers curled around hers with surprising strength. I'm here, she said, words she had repeated thousands of times over 30 years, only now receiving a response. That you played, he said. Each word seemed to require immense effort. I heard you, playing, through the darkness. Anna felt tears streaming down her face but made no move to wipe them away. I knew you would hear me. I knew you were still there somewhere. Thomas's eyes moved to the piano, still positioned at the foot of his bed. Again? He asked, a lifetime of shared understanding making the single-word request perfectly clear. Anna looked to Dr. Rivera, who gave a slight nod. A short piece wouldn't hurt. It might even help us understand what's happening neurologically. With Thomas's hand still in hers, Anna hesitated. I should warn you, she said with a small smile. I'm a bit out of practice, and these old fingers aren't what they used to be. Thomas's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. Still beautiful, he whispered. Always beautiful. Anna squeezed his hand and then moved to the piano. This time she chose a simpler piece, Bach's Prelude in C major, the first classical piece she had ever mastered as a girl. As she played, the medical staff quietly continued their work, several of them pausing occasionally to watch the extraordinary scene. Thomas's eyes never left her. When she finished and returned to his bedside, there were tears on his hollow cheeks. 30 years? He asked. the reality finally seeming to penetrate. They told me. 30 years? Anna nodded, unsure what to say. What words could possibly bridge such an unimaginable gap in time? Our children? He asked. Grown, with children of their own, and grandchildren too. Lily and David are outside waiting to see you. Thomas absorbed this, his expression flickering between wonder and grief. I missed so much, but you're here now, Anna said firmly. That's what matters. Dr. Rivera approached, checking one of the monitors. Mr. Chen, your vital signs are remarkably stable, but we should avoid tiring you too much. Perhaps we could let your children visit briefly. Thomas nodded, though his eyes remained on Anna. Lily was first, entering the room with hesitant steps, her hand covering her mouth when she saw her father awake and alert. She was 59 now, with strands of gray in her dark hair, a middle-aged woman rather than the 29-year-old daughter Thomas remembered. Dad? She said, her voice breaking. It's me. It's Lily. Recognition dawned in Thomas's eyes. My little girl, he whispered. Not so little anymore. Lily moved to the bedside, taking his other hand. I've missed you so much. Tell me, Thomas said, his voice growing stronger with each exchange. Tell me. Everything. Over the next hour, the room became a space where time collapsed and expanded in strange ways. David came in after Lily, bringing photographs on his phone to help bridge the decades. Thomas's grandchildren growing up, family gatherings, holidays, graduations, weddings, all the moments that had continued in his absence. Through it all, Anna remained by his side, occasionally filling in details that their children had forgotten or hadn't witnessed. Thomas absorbed it all with an intensity that seemed to tire him visibly, but he refused to rest, desperate to reclaim some portion of the years he had lost. Finally, Dr. Rivera insisted on ending the reunion for the day. Mr. Chen needs rest. This level of stimulation and emotional processing is extremely taxing for his recovering brain. You can all return tomorrow. As the others said their reluctant goodbyes, Anna lingered. I should stay, she told the doctor. I've stayed with him every day for 30 years. Dr. Rivera hesitated, then nodded. We'll set up a cot for you when they were alone again, or as alone, as they could be, with medical staff regularly checking vitals and adjusting equipment. Thomas reached for Anna's hand. You never left, he said. A statement rather than a question. Not once, she confirmed. Not for 30 years. Thomas's eyes filled with tears again. Why? Anna looked at him with surprise. After all these years, all this waiting, did he really not know? Because I promised you forever, she said simply. And I meant it. Thomas seemed to struggle with something, his brow furrowing with concentration. I was somewhere, not here but not gone. I could hear sometimes like echoes from far away. Your voice coming and going. I talk to you every day, Anna said. About everything, I know, he whispered. Somehow I know. His eyes were growing heavy now. The exhaustion of awakening after 30 years finally overtaking his determination to stay present. Rest, Anna told him, stroking his thin white hair. I'll be here when you wake up. I promise. As Thomas drifted off to sleep, real sleep, not the unresponsive state that had claimed 30 years of his life, Anna settled into the chair beside his bed, her hand still holding his. Outside the door, medical professionals conferred in hushed tones about miracle recoveries and case studies, about neural pathways and music therapy and medical anomalies. But inside the room, there was only this: two people who had refused to be separated, even by something as formidable as a 30-year coma, and the promise of tomorrow, of a new beginning neither of them had dared to imagine. 6 months had passed since Thomas Chen had opened his eyes to a world that had continued without him for 3 decades. Fall had given way to winter, and winter had melted into spring. Now, as summer approached, warm breezes carried the scent of blooming flowers through the open windows of the Chen family home. The house itself had undergone a transformation. The downstairs study had been converted into a bedroom, complete with a hospital-grade bed and necessary medical equipment. A wheelchair ramp had been installed at the front entrance and grab bars had been added to the bathroom. Yet despite these clinical additions, the home maintained its warmth. Fresh flowers on every table, family photos covering the walls, and most days, the gentle sound of piano music filling the air. Thomas sat in his wheelchair by the living room window, watching a pair of cardinals in the old oak tree. At 76, he looked both younger and older than his years. His body weakened from decades of immobility, but his eyes bright with the wonder of rediscovery. "Tea's ready," Anna called from the kitchen, her voice strong despite her advanced age. "I'll get it." "Mom," Lily said, visiting as she did every Wednesday afternoon. "You sit down." Anna waved away her daughter's concern. "I've been standing in this kitchen for 80 years. I'm not about to stop now." Nevertheless, Lily helped carry the teapot and cups to the small table near Thomas's wheelchair. At 100.5 years old, Anna moved more slowly these days, but she still insisted on maintaining as many normal routines as possible. "The physical therapist says Dad's making excellent progress," Lily said as she poured the tea. "She thinks he might be able to take a few steps with the walker next month." Thomas smiled at the news. His speech had improved dramatically over the months, though he still spoke with deliberate care. "Walking again? In time for our anniversary." Anna reached over to squeeze his hand. Their 79th wedding anniversary was approaching, a milestone they had never expected to celebrate together. "The neurologist still can't explain it," Lily continued. Sitting down with her own cup of tea, Dr. Rivera has submitted the case study to 3 different medical journals. He says researchers from around the world are asking to review Dad's records. "Guinea pig," Thomas joked, tapping his head with his finger. "You're providing valuable information that might help others," Anna corrected him gently. "That's a gift." They all knew the statistics. In the months following Thomas's awakening, they had learned that cases like his were vanishingly rare. Most patients who remained in a coma for more than a few years never regained consciousness. Those who did typically showed minimal awareness, not the remarkable cognitive recovery Thomas had experienced. "Dr. Rivera thinks it was the music," Lily said, not for the first time. The family had discussed various theories endlessly in the months since the awakening. "He believes the familiar melody created new neural pathways somehow, or reactivated old ones," Anna added. They explained it as, what was the term? Neuroplasticity, Thomas applied. His memory for recent events, including medical terminology, had proven surprisingly intact, another anomaly that fascinated his doctors. The sound of a car door slamming announced David's arrival. Moments later, he entered through the front door without knocking, a large envelope in his hands. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing his mother's cheek and clapping his father gently on the shoulder. "Had to stop by the university to pick these up." He pulled several glossy photographs from the envelope and laid them on the table. They showed a striking modern building with large windows and a spacious entry plaza. "The Thomas Chen Center for Music Therapy," he announced proudly. "The final renderings were approved yesterday. Groundbreaking is set for next month." Thomas stared at the images, his eyes growing damp. "You didn't have to name it after me." "Yes, we did," David countered. "Your case is what inspired the whole project. The university's neuroscience department has received more funding in the past 6 months than in the previous 5 years combined. Everyone wants to understand what happened with you." What had happened was still something of a mystery, even to those who had witnessed it. After Thomas's awakening, a flurry of tests had revealed increased brain activity in areas previously thought dormant. Researchers theorized that years of Anna's daily visits, her constant talking and touching, had maintained neural connections that would otherwise have deteriorated. Then the emotional impact of the familiar music, played by the woman he loved, had somehow triggered a cascade effect, allowing his consciousness to resurface. "The center will combine research and treatment," David explained, pointing to different sections of the building. "They'll study how music affects the brain in coma patients and provide therapy for people with various neurological conditions. Your father would be embarrassed by all this." "Attention if he weren't so proud," Anna said, a teasing light in her eyes as she looked at her husband. Thomas smiled back at her, a private exchange that spoke of their deep connection. "Not as proud as I am of you," he replied. The family conversation continued, touching on various topics: May's promotion at work, Zoe's upcoming dance recital, plans for a summer barbecue that would bring the extended family together. Thomas participated actively, asking questions and offering comments, though he tired more quickly than the others. Eventually, Lily noticed her father's energy flagging. "We should probably let you rest, Dad." Thomas shook his head stubbornly. "Not yet," Anna promised. "To play for me." Anna glanced at the clock. "Are you sure, dear? We could wait until after your nap. Now, he insisted with gentle firmness, while everyone's here. Anna nodded and moved to the piano, the same instrument that had stood silent for 30 years and now sang daily. As she settled onto the bench, their children exchanged knowing glances. This had become a ritual in the Chen household, as sacred as prayer. Today Anna chose a piece by Mozart, a joyful composition that seemed to capture the sense of rebirth that had defined these past months. Though her hands were not as nimble as they once had been, her playing retained its emotional depth. As the music filled the room, Thomas closed his eyes, a peaceful expression settling over his features. When Anna finished, the family sat in comfortable silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Then David checked his watch and stood. "I've got to get back to the restaurant," he said reluctantly. "Dinner service starts in an hour. Lily rose as well. And I promised to pick Zoe up from her friend's house." After goodbyes had been exchanged and their children had departed, Anna wheeled Thomas to their downstairs bedroom for his afternoon rest. She helped him transfer from the wheelchair to the bed, a maneuver they had perfected over months of practice. As she adjusted his pillows, Thomas caught her hand. "Anna," he said, his voice serious, "we need to talk about something." She sat on the edge of the bed, concern crossing her face. "Is something wrong?" "Are you in pain?" "No," he assured her. "Just thinking. About time." Anna waited, giving him space to find the words. Thomas's speech was fully intelligible now, but he still sometimes struggled to articulate complex thoughts. "I missed 30 years, he said finally, "and now, we don't have many left." The reality of their situation hung between them. Anna was 100 years old. Despite her remarkable vitality, time was not on their side. And Thomas, though younger in years, had a body weakened by decades of immobility. The medical miracle of his awakening did not guarantee him a normal lifespan. "We have now," Anna said simply. "That's more than we thought we'd ever have again." Thomas nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "I worry about leaving you alone." Anna smiled, a bittersweet expression that acknowledged his concern while gently dismissing it. "Thomas Chen, I spent 30 years talking to you when you couldn't answer. Do you really think a little thing like death would stop me from feeling your presence?" He chuckled softly, the worry in his eyes easing somewhat. "Besides," she continued, "no one knows how much time they have." "Not really. We could have another day or another decade. But we've already beaten the odds, haven't we?" "We have," he agreed. He was quiet for a moment, then added, "I want to go outside more. See things. While we can." Anna nodded. "The doctors said you're stable enough for short trips now. We could start with the botanical gardens. You always loved them in the spring. And the lake," Thomas added, warming to the idea. "And David's restaurant. And Zoe's dance recital next month. All of it," Anna promised. "Whatever you want to see, we'll find a way." A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the distant singing of birds outside the window. Thomas's eyelids began to droop, the conversation having depleted his limited energy. "Rest now," Anna said, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "I'll be here when you wake up." It was the promise she had made countless times over the years, first to an unresponsive form in a hospital bed, and now to the man who had defied medical science to return to her. As Thomas drifted to sleep, Anna remained sitting beside him, her hand resting lightly on his chest to feel the reassuring rhythm of his breathing. Through the window, she could see the old oak tree where they had hung a swing for their children decades ago. The cardinals were still flitting among its branches, a flash of red against the green leaves. Life continued to unfold around them, as it always had. Children grew, seasons changed, time marched forward. The miracle wasn't that Thomas had awakened after 30 years, though that defied explanation. The real miracle, Anna thought, was in the everyday moments they now shared. Morning tea, afternoon music, conversations about everything and nothing. The miracle was simply this. After a century of life and 30 years of waiting, she still found joy in watching him sleep, secure in the knowledge that this time he would wake again and speak her name. In a world that rushed ever forward, Anna and Thomas Chen had been granted a rare gift, the chance to rediscover each other after time had tried and failed to separate them. And in that rediscovery they had found not just the echo of their past love, but something new and precious. The understanding that some bonds truly can transcend even the deepest silence.